Hi, it's me again. I would like to add something to the previous topic about why people don't look closely, why they don't oppose more than they do, um, and the educated people as well. And I think there are other aspects of identification which are connected. Of course, there are many reasons, and I have no attempt or claim to cover them all, of course. Yesterday, a friend said people are also educated people who are still at work are so busy with their work and career that they don't have time to investigate, and you really have to have time to investigate because in the mainstream media you only get the one track story and narrative, and even when something dribbles through they try to distract it and calm it down, and so you really have to know what to look for and have to have the time to look for it. And I see it as part of my work and responsibility as I have in my position the time to do the investigation, to add to this info and to forward it to people where I know they are open, but they don't have the time and energy to do that. However, next to what I said in the previous video, I think about being scientific and staying with the science, the so-called. I think it's also kind of an identification we are used to, that the, excuse my French, the shitty part of life um, is always for the others over there in the development countries, and the others who haven't done their work properly, or the others, the black people in the US. Not that we are not compassionate or sorry for them, or maybe trying to help with money or something, but it's not our group we identify with. And though it's not helpful to feel guilty about it because it's a systemic problem we are profiting from, and nobody has anything from it when we feel guilty and nothing changes. And I always was against that. But now, as long as you are not willing to comply and get the vaccination or do everything that's required to be a good citizen and to get this green passport and things like that, you suddenly have to face the unpleasant truth that you are part of the others now. The ones that feel helpless, the ones that get excluded, the ones that are not part of the herd, the ones who get smeared, the ones who don't get the privileges but are maybe even facing threats, and are not sheltered and secure in the way we are used, and not privileged in the way we are used. And I think it's partly maybe even more difficult for men, for white privileged men, than it is for women, because they could keep up the illusion that they are completely at the top of the food chain, maybe not at the very top, but basically at the top in the West. As a woman, I'm used that I'm part of both, so to speak. I'm a very privileged Western educated woman, and I'm very grateful for that. I had a good life in many, many respects. But I always also was part of the so-called victim. I don't think in these categories, but we are thinking as a society mostly in these categories of victim, perpetrator, and savior. So I use this terminology, but however, very, very real when I, not only that I'm very compassionate and identified with the women, most women in the world who are not so privileged and have to face all kinds um, of threats and legal problems and being lower and not so as privileged as the men in their societies. But very basically, my education, my being white, my being relatively wealthy doesn't help me anything, even in Vienna, when it's in the night in a side street and I am confronted with not privileged and not white and not the usual privileged men. And then the game changes immediately, and I'm the one who is at their mercy, so to speak. So I'm maybe more used and not so afraid to question this identification. But I think it's really, really important to be willing to face this situation. If you are not, as I said at the beginning, willing to comply, because if we don't face it, we can't do anything about it, of course. So this was what I wanted to add to this first video. Maybe to think about this and think about where we are now as a group and where the split goes. It's different now. It's changing anyway, and this is not meant to add to the split, but what I'm going to say now is more to get us together again, not only globally, but also in our societies. Because I want to add a second topic I thought about, and it's about the very necessity to exclude people because they are not vaccinated. And I think that we are so in a bubble now that it's even hard to think beyond this bubble. But I did that, and I even wrote what I'm going to say now to several more influential people in the alternative media. But of course, they get so many emails, and maybe they don't agree with me. However, I haven't read or saw anything about it. But now I'm going to explain it here, because we always are, if it's not about our own health, maybe people don't want to get the vaccination to be safe for themselves. It's always about being solidary with the others and herd immunity and things like that. And you mustn't go anywhere without testing, vaccination, or being recovered. And we are going to get this green passport, as I read yesterday in Die Presse, which is a very traditional and old newspaper in Austria. And they said it will come with summer, and it's part of the e-card, which is kind of the legitimation you have to show when you go to the doctor that you have got insurance, and they put it in, and they get it the to get paid for their service by the insurances. However, and they said it's not only to cross the borders, but it's also to get to the hairdressers, and of course all that's not absolutely required, like going to buy food and to go to the bank or something. Yes, and now they come around with this solidary, being solidary with those because of the intensive beds, and not to overwhelm the health system. And I thought, well, first of all, there is a very little likelihood to have to get to the hospital and to the intensive care, especially when they vaccinate old people anyway, in the old people's homes, and those over 80 who who were most of the people who had to get to intensive care. And if so many people who are afraid and have some preconditions do it on their own anyway, so the likelihood that one needs this is not so high. But it can happen, of course, can happen to anyone, can happen to me, can happen to you. But where was the call for being solidary to the people who mostly needed and now need intensive care and hospitalization, and that are the people who are not leading healthy lifestyles, and who are overweight, and who are smoking, and who are driving fast, and who are doing sports that are dangerous, and all the rest who have the heart conditions and things like that. It's not meant to attack them or to exclude them or to put up another split in the society, just to say that those are the most who need these intense cares. And it's not like some natural event that most intense beds are taken, and so we have to get the vaccination to keep them free for these natural events, but that there are interests that people don't lead healthy lifestyles, that it's made difficult for them to lead healthy lifestyles, to get sports and move enough and eat healthy. But there was no call for solidarity to these groups, who also could provide to lessen the need for intense cares and hospitalization, or taking up most of the resources in the health system. So if it was really about health, and if it really was about solidarity, our governments should make it easy to lead these lifestyles, and send appels to these people as well to act solidary. So I think this is an artificial split. And if someone doesn't want to lead this healthy lifestyle, of whatever reason, fine with me. And I always was willing to pay for these life choices, And often they aren't even really choices, but helplessness and problems of other sources that lead to these lifestyles, as we know. But then please don't appeal to our solidarity only, right? So maybe you could keep this in mind when they want to put you at the spot about being solidary with the health system and not to overload it. Well, that was what I wanted to say today, and I hope that people who think they get away with being compliant don't regret it when it comes to their front door, to be controlled and to be limited, because on the green passport they will have to add what they eat a certain day and how many steps they walk a certain day and the like. So we don't need anything of this, and we don't, at least me, and I don't want any of this. And with this, I wish you a nice weekend and hope I have contributed something to the discussion. And it's always about a discussion. It's not about being right. It's not about being the only one who tells the truth, but it's just a contribution to the open, hopefully open discussion about all this. So have a nice day and a nice weekend, as I said. Bye for now.